But it's important to bring some balance to this conversation, to this ongoing debate, and to understand that if we're truly going to be effective in terms of tackling crime and guns and gangs, we're going to have to address those things that breed the criminality in the first instance.
That's Ontario Premier Dalton McGuinty after visiting the Scarborough community, still reeling in shock after an horrific shootout that killed 2 people and injured 23 others. And Toronto Mayor Rob Ford has ignited a new controversy. First, Ford's comments link gun violence with foreigners. Then the Toronto Mayor said he wants to banish anyone convicted of gun crimes from his city. And he wants a meeting with the Prime Minister to see what can be done. So were his comments pointing a finger at immigrant communities? And should cities have the right to boot out those it deems a threat to its own public safety? Joining me now by phone is Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Jason Kenney. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Minister Kenney, I want to start by reading out a tweet you posted yesterday. Now, in it, it says, "I agree with Mayor Ford. Foreign gangsters should be deported without delay. That's why we've introduced faster removal of Foreign Criminals Act." Now, what is it exactly about Rob Ford's comments that you agree with?
Well, I understand he said yesterday that convicted foreign gangsters should be deported from Canada, and we agree. There have been, frankly, I think, loopholes in our system that have allowed endless delays of removal for serious convicted foreign criminals that we're trying to close through our Bill C-43, the Faster Removal of Foreign Criminals Act. And that's specifically been motivated by cases of foreign citizens who were involved in gangs in Canada, including drug gangs, who were able to, I can think of one case, a fellow named Jackie Tran in Calgary was able to delay removal for 7 years, even though he was the head of a drug gang. So our point is that we agree foreign citizens who are convicted of serious crimes should be subject to expeditious removal and shouldn't, they should get due process, but not to be able to abuse the process endlessly.
So to be clear, has Mr. Ford, any other law enforcement official, indicated to you that the people involved with Monday night shootings were foreigners or immigrants to this country?
No, I haven't spoken to him, and I haven't spoken to any law enforcement officials about that particular case. But clearly, the recent rash of gun crime in Toronto is connected to criminal gang activity. And we are aware that there have been foreign members, sometimes leading members of criminal gangs in Canada, able to recommit offenses while delaying their deportation. So my comment was not in relation to any particular crime or any particular alleged criminal. It was in relation to the broader problem of gang crime, which sometimes does involve foreign citizens who are delaying deportation from Canada. And we shouldn't be squeamish about this. We should say that if you are a foreigner who's abused the privilege of being in Canada, you're involved in it, you've been convicted of a serious crime, such as a gang-related violence, you should be subject to prompt deportation.
Now, Rob Ford's comments, to be fair, were about the Toronto shootings, and you agree with Rob Ford's comments.
Well, one of the comments I heard, I think he's made a lot of comments, and one of the comments I heard him make...
The one that we're particularly looking at is the one where he says he wants the Prime Minister to look at immigration laws to banish people convicted of gun crimes from Toronto. So he was making that tie there, and I think that's where a lot of the backlash came from. Yeah,
again, if he's suggesting that we should deport people, foreign nationals in Canada who are involved in violent offenses, violent crimes, gun crimes, gang crimes, we totally agree. And that's the point of our Faster Removal of Foreign Criminals Act, which has been endorsed by the Canadian Police Association, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and I think all of the major victims' rights organizations in Canada. I think we're addressing the problem that he was raising, which is that convicted foreign criminals should not be able to stay indefinitely in Canada, but should be subject to removal.
Now, are you using this tragedy that some are saying this that as a means to push this bill?
No, of course not. This is something we committed to in the last election platform in 2011, a year ago. It's a bill that we introduced a month ago, and the reality is that we have had far too many violent offenses committed by convicted serious foreign criminals who've been allowed to stay in Canada sometimes for several years. And it's not unreasonable to say that when we see an outbreak of gang violence, that this reinforces the need for Parliament promptly to pass this kind of legislation.
So it is kind of a tie using this situation that we're looking at right now to get this passed through Parliament more quickly.
Listen, everyone is looking for remedies. Everyone is looking for solutions to the problem of out-of-control gang violence. And I believe one of the many different possible remedies is to make our community safer by ensuring that convicted foreign criminals who might be involved in gang activity are deported more quickly. And when we see a problem, naturally public debate searches for solutions. We think Bill C-43 constitutes part of the solution to gang violence, certainly as it relates to foreign nationals who are recommitting offences in Canada.
Now, we're hearing that the Prime Minister's office is trying to arrange a meeting between the PM and Mayor Ford probably next week. What will be discussed at that meeting?
Well, I don't know. I think obviously Mayor Ford has a long list of items, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will remind him that we've given the police and our courts stronger tools to deal with criminals who use firearms and criminals involved in gang activity. We've brought in mandatory minimum penal sentences for firearms offenses, for recruitment into gangs. We've eliminated or rather reduced the sentencing discounts for pretrial custody. We have curtailed some of the discretion on bail. All of these things mean that people convicted of these kinds of offenses will spend more time behind bars and off of our streets. So I'm sure the Prime Minister will underscore the measures that we've taken and see if the Mayor thinks we should take additional measures.
And he also says that it doesn't matter who you are, if you are convicted of these types of crimes, you're not going to live in Toronto. What's your response to that?
Well, if you're a foreign citizen and you commit these crimes...
He says it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, if you are, we want you to be deported more quickly. If you are a Canadian citizen, you should be removed from the streets of Toronto and spend years behind bars. Obviously, eventually, a Canadian citizen with a criminal conviction who's released and is no longer under parole conditions has mobility rights.
Jason Kenney, thank you so much for joining us today.